Good afternoon, and welcome to the Louisiana Middle District's 27th Annual African American History Month celebration. Each year, we commemorate the contributions of African Americans to the growth and development of our nation. It has been a tradition that all members of our court have embraced over the last several years, and we're pleased to do so again today. This event would otherwise be conducted in our court's ceremonial courtroom, as has been the case over the past many years. And in addition to our court staff and public officials, members of the bar, and community leaders, members of the public would also be invited to join us here today. Unfortunately, due to the challenges of the ongoing COVID pandemic, it prevents us from hosting such a large gathering. So today's technology has enabled us to conduct this event in a virtual setting, and we're pleased to do that today and are very, very happy that you could join us. At this time, I would ask my colleague, Judge Brian Jackson, to introduce our distinguished speaker.
Thank you very much, Chief Judge Dick. I'm excited to introduce our esteemed guest today, Dr. Corey Hebert. Dr. Hebert is a native of Baton Rouge, a graduate of Catholic High School here in Baton Rouge. He's also a graduate of the Morehouse College and the Meharry Medical Center. He currently serves as a professor at both the LSU Health Sciences Center and Tulane University Medical Center. He has been the principal research investigator on over 60 clinical trials of various nutritional and pharmacotherapeutic agents. He's an award-winning medical journalist as well, serving as the on-air chief medical editor for the NBC affiliate in New Orleans and the Gulf region. He has served as the chief medical correspondent for the Black News Channel and has made numerous appearances on a variety of networks, including CNN, CBS, Good Morning America, and The Today Show, to name just a few. He's also served as the chairman of the Executive Advisory Council of the National Health Services Corporation and was previously on the CDC Advisory Board for influenza. He's been the author of several peer-reviewed journal publications, and most recently for the New England Journal of Medicine. And he also serves as the principal investigator on multiple COVID-19 vaccines. He is the chief medical officer for Dillard University in New Orleans. Please join me in welcoming again our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Corey Hebert. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I just want to say that whenever I walk into a space like this, these hallowed halls, I have to step back and see that what we're trying to do in the world, what we're trying to do in America, no matter what race, no matter what creed or religion, this is where it must all begin. This is where it must all start, meaning the laws of the land and government and how we can make this place better for everyone. So I just want to thank everyone for coming to this virtual thing that I do not like. I do not like virtual things, but we have to do it now because of our pandemic, which California is trying to say it's endemic. They're a little premature. You heard it here first. So what we're going to do today is talk about how all this has developed and where we are when it comes to a global pandemic. The word pandemic means that this is disrupting the world. And just for the record, there are 5 stages to a pandemic, and we are still in stage 1. Stage 1 is the actual pandemic. The second phase is deceleration, and we thought we were in deceleration. If people, that were now Facebook scientists, they thought that they were in deceleration once Delta was over, and then here we come with Omicron, which obviously made us have acceleration, and that's where we still are. We are decelerating again, only probably to have a little bit more because there's the BA2 variant that is destroying lots of infrastructure as far as folks around the world, starting in Denmark and now across the Pacific Rim and in Africa. So that's where we are. But before we talk about all that stuff, I do have to mind my time because, as he mentioned, I went to Morehouse College, and that's the alma mater of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So they taught us how to learn and to be proud as black men, but they also taught us how to be orators. And I'm not going to do that today. I am not. I promise you. I'm going to stay within my time limit. But what I do want to talk about is vaccination. vaccination is a very interesting thing. It has caused the schism of our country, just between different types of folks, colors, and different types of populations, different types of socioeconomic status, this vaccination and masking. And I would say, you can't have it all. You can't not have the vaccination and not wear a mask and want to go everywhere. But that's neither here nor there. But I want to give you a little background on vaccination and why vaccination is called vaccination. Most of you probably don't know. But let's go all the way back to like the 1600s. There was something called smallpox, and I'm sure you've heard of that. And what happened is that there was a slave owner who was also a puritanical minister named Cotton Mather in Boston. People were losing their lives across Boston from smallpox, and people were very concerned and very nervous. Well, he had a slave named Onesimus, and Onesimus had come directly from West Africa. And what he realized is that this looked similar to what people were dying of at some point in West Africa. So Onesimus went to Cotton Mather and said, "Hey, Cotton, I think I got something here that you could really, really use. Well, when people would get this smallpox, they would take a stick and rub it on that lesion for smallpox. And then the people that didn't have smallpox, we would rub that stick that we touched the people with smallpox with and break the skin on them. And they would get a little bit sick, but they wouldn't die." And Cotton Mather said, "Mr. Slave, I don't think so. No way, right? Just go back to your slave work." And so time went on for about 2 or 3 months. Then he came again and said, "Hey, and all this is documented. We need to talk about this." And Cotton, at that point, his family was getting sick, and he was like, "Okay, man, what can it hurt us?" So they started to do it, and they did it, and Cotton Mather's family did not die. And they said, "Wait a minute, we need to take this to the next level." So Cotton Mather said, "Hey, Boston, my slave told me about something that we did to stop all this death to smallpox." They were like, "Come on, man." Anyway, I'll get to the point. So what ended up happening is that this concept spread across Boston and stopped hundreds of thousands of potential deaths. And then fast forward about 100 years later, they started looking at this in labs, and they started calling it variolization. And variolization is variola, which is also a type of virus. So they said variola is what we're going to check this on and do it in the lab. So they did it in the lab, but they didn't use smallpox because that would actually kill people. So they used something called cowpox. And what they did was take the cowpox person that was infected and then inject the person that was not infected, and then see if they could actually have antibodies and actually not get cowpox, which was not deadly. Well, that actually did work. And so now they said, vaca is Latin for cow. So vaca nation is what we're going to call this. And that's where the word vaccination comes from. And if you go all the way back, go to Boston, there are giant monuments to the slave Onesimus, who actually brought variolization from Africa to the United States. So when we had a lot of African Americans that did not want to get vaccinated, and our governor, John Bel Edwards, called me in. He said, "We need to talk to folks." So he gave me his press conference and said, "Let's talk about this," because vaccination, it actually was from places all over the world, but an African slave brought it here. So when we talk about this, I want you guys to realize vaccination is nothing new. We've been doing it for a very long time. As a matter of fact, we had a vaccination that actually got into arms quicker than the vaccination that we have right now. And that vaccination is the Meningitis B vaccine. I was the principal investigator on that, and we had a Meningitis B outbreak in about 9 years ago. And we got a vaccine from the bench all the way to arms in Princeton University in less than 9 months. But you didn't hear about that, did you? You didn't, did you? It really wasn't that big of a deal. The biggest deal was the fact that we gave it to the folks at Princeton first, and everybody said, "Oh, they're rich, so they get the vaccine." So everybody was fighting, trying to get the vaccine at that point. But we had that in people's arms in less than really 9 months. But you didn't hear about it because the world didn't stop. People weren't sitting at home. They weren't watching what the FDA was doing, trying to figure out, I know I'm a postman, but I think I'd like to be a virologist. They didn't think about that. They didn't have Facebook scientists. And so people really wanted to get into all the things that were happening when it comes to what is happening with this pandemic. And just like with law, just like with being a judge, just like with being in the legal profession, I don't espouse to have that type of understanding. So what I do is I look to the people that have led me from our founding fathers all the way to here. I look to them to tell me what I should do when it comes to legal issues. But America and the world didn't do that for doctors this time. They didn't give us a pass. They said, we want to know what you're doing, but we really don't understand. And that has been one of the bigger issues as we've gotten towards trying to get towards the end of this pandemic. Where we are right now, folks, is we are in a place of scarcity. And when we talk about scarcity, it makes people do lots of interesting things. Now, I'm going to take you off on a little tangent here. I still do practice medicine a bit. And today was my half day where I would see some patients, and I saw young men today. And for the first time in 25 years of practice, I saw these young men, African-American men, most of them very poor, between the ages of 13 and 17. I saw 9 of them, of 15 patients that I saw this morning, and 9 of them were in for depression and self-mutilation, drug use, and a couple of them some alcohol use. And these were very, very young boys. And I've never seen that before. So there are lots of problems out there that I think we have to address when it comes to this. We have to address the fact that people right now have been so sheltered in their homes that they're just happy to be out, but they are trying to readjust. That's the first thing. Second thing we have to address is the fact that we have a lot of things that when most of you are, have a little snow on the roof, you don't even have any concept of the fact that social media is allowing young people to see things that they've never ever seen. So I'll take you to where you need to be in this and see how this makes you feel. When you may have Instagram and you see someone in the Maldives, you could go to the Maldives anytime you want. You could afford it. But it does make you a little bit jealous when you're sitting in your chambers like, man, I need to take some time off. I need to go to the Maldives. And you can go. So think about what that seems like and feels like for a young black male who doesn't know anything about the Maldives, but he wants to go to a professional basketball game. Or he wants to, have food that he sees people eating all this beautiful food all over the internet. He wants to have Gucci sneakers because that's all he knows, because Kim Kardashian told him that was what he should have. And he is hopeless. So he sees all this, and this is where we're starting to get a lot of mental health problems, not just in African Americans, but across the United States, because people are depressed because they've been exposed to so much that you weren't exposed to when you were that age, but they've been exposed to it and they can't have it. And they know for the rest of their lives, unless they do something bad, they're not going to be able to get it. The African American population, because of the social determinants of health, falls at the foot of this problem more than anyone else. I'll give you a couple of statistics here. If you're an African American male and you have chest pain, the odds of you getting an EKG or any type of cardiac workup when you go to the ER for chest pain is about 17 times less than if you were a white male with the same chest pain. If you're an African American female and you're in the hospital to have a baby, the odds of you dying during childbirth are equal to a third world country. And the higher your education, the higher you've achieved, the more you are at risk of dying on the table while having a baby. A young African American child that's in the hospital, admitted to the hospital, has a 7 times higher risk of dying in that inpatient ward if he's not being taken care of by an African American physician. Why do we say this? Implicit bias, which I'm sure you have studied many, many volumes of. Also, the social determinants of health. What are those? Okay, where we live, where we love, where we work, and where we play. And we don't like to really talk about the health disparities anymore. So as you start to talk about these things in your families or even in your courtrooms, health disparities. Let's not say health disparities anymore. You know why? Because health disparities lets people off the hook. A disparity means a difference. So there's a disparity between the weather in Miami right now and the weather in the South Pole right now. Very different. But that doesn't mean that the weather in the South Pole is bad. Doesn't mean that the weather in Miami is bad. They're just different. There are disparities between those two. So when we talk about health disparities, that means, you getting bad and it's not good. So when you look at where you live, where you love, where you work, and where you play, you can't really just say, black folks just have a whole lot of hypertension because, that hypertension issue is because they just eat poorly. Well, let's go deeper. Why do you eat poorly? Because you live in a horrible area. In that horrible area, there's no place for you to get fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. If there are, then those vegetables and fresh fruit are too expensive. So then you have to eat something where you can get like a bunch of starch or a bunch of potatoes, or a bunch of salty, preserved, processed food. So that means that your blood pressure is going to go up, which means there's going to be a comorbidity, which means you're going to have a loss of vision because you're going to have hypertension and diabetes. You're going to have dialysis, which is a loss of you've been able to purify your urine so it can actually be voided, with keeping your blood pressure down. You're going to have all these issues, right? Well, why don't you just get a better job? Why don't you just get a better job? Well, because where we go to school, remember where we go, where we work, where we play, all these things, we don't have it as good as schools. So that means that, young black men, when they're coming through a school system, they've only met one person that's ever gone to college, and that's their teacher. As a matter of fact, I went to Catholic High in Baton Rouge, and I went to Sacred Heart in Baton Rouge as well. And I only had one African-American teacher my entire life until I went to Morehouse College, and that teacher's name was Miss White. That's actually not a joke. That's actually true. So the point is, I was never exposed to those things except to my parents. But if my parents didn't have that type of exposure, then where would we be, right? So with all these things being said, what I want you just to remember when we talk about black history, we have to address the problems from the root cause. And the root cause has always been the fact that we have had oppression in this country from the beginning, and we have to address it now because people are human beings. They have dignity. They have pride. Nobody wants to live in the projects. Nobody does. Nobody wants their child not to be successful. Nobody does. If you ask a mother who's a crackhead and ask her in this courtroom, do you want your child to be successful? She's going to say, yes, I want my child to be successful. But I need the tools. Okay? So with that being said, I know my time is being monitored very closely by these two great people behind me. And so I want to give you some things that you could, as tools, so you can make your life better. Not just black folks. Everybody can make their lives better. 5 things. The first thing I want you to do on the road to health, I want you to drink more water and decrease the alcohol. Okay? If you go to an Outback Steakhouse and have a margarita, that's about 1,250 calories and more sugar than 17 Krispy Kreme donuts, okay? No more. If you eat a bowl of rice, that has as much sugar as 2 bowls of ice cream. You never eat 2 bowls of ice cream for dinner, you eat 2 scoops of rice every day. If you wanted to do better, I really want you to make sure that you drink more water, okay? And don't drink so much alcohol. Drink more water. Put down the sugary drinks. Put down the sodas that are that are carbonated but are have saccharin or are diet, because they are worse. They make you gain more weight. And also, juice is good, but full sugar juice is also not good. So I want you to watch what you drink. Drink more water. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to change your toothbrush. Change your toothbrush. Why is that, right? Because people's toothbrushes, I have friends, older friends that have had the same toothbrush since, American Bandstand was on. I mean, let's be honest, right? You got to get rid of the toothbrush because it carries a lot of bacteria, and that bacteria can get into your gums and get into your heart and cause endocarditis, okay? And I want you to brush your teeth twice a day, because with you not taking care of your teeth, not taking care of your dentition, really can cause you to have a lot of problems in your life. You got to go to the dentist a lot, number one, but it actually causes systemic illness, okay? The second thing, I want you to eat 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables a day. We know that if you eat 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables a day, you will decrease your risk of cancer by 30%. Point blank. That is the reality. Okay? So please stop eating bad stuff. 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables. I want you to lose 10 pounds. Lose 10 pounds. Okay? If you stop eating all the sugar, because people want to say, oh, calories. Oh, I'm watching my calories. It's not about calories. Calories don't make you gain a bunch of weight unless they're sugar calories. Okay? Fat-free, don't worry about fat. Fat causes problems in your arteries, okay? So if you have high blood pressure, you need to decrease your fat content. But sugar is what makes you gain weight. And you eat so much sugar, it fills up here, fills up here, fills up here, okay? Here. Decrease your sugar. Bread, rice, potatoes, and noodles. Your plate needs to be full of protein, full of vegetables, and a small amount of starch. That's how you actually get rid of your fat. I also want you to remove the stress. And I'm going to leave you with that one, okay? Remove the stress. Stress increases steroid levels in your body, Steroid levels like cortisol send the levels of other hormones up, and steroids in your body make you retain sugar because they are fight or flight hormones. And when you retain sugar because you have so much steroid, then you can never ever lose weight, and then that puts extra stress on your body, puts extra stress on your mind. And right now, with all the stress that we have in this world, I need you to try to get some therapy. Don't be scared of that. There's not one person in this world that knows everything about you, that you've told everything to. Not your wife, not your best friend. You always have a few things that you keep, and those things eat at you. If you go to a therapist, you can finally vent those things, and by law, as you know, they can't tell anybody, so you feel safe, okay? So with that being said, I esteemed folks behind us, thank you so much. And anytime that you need me, I'm at your call, because without you taking care of this hallowed hall, then the world really can't do the things that it needs to do to function appropriately. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hebert, and thanks to Judge Jackson, my colleague and friend, for inviting you to speak to us today. Your observations and recommendations we will take with us. We appreciate your willingness to give up your time. We know that, like all healthcare professionals, you've been exceedingly busy these days, and your time is valuable, and we appreciate not only your time, but we really appreciate your insight. Before we adjourn, I'd also like to take a moment to thank Kel Martin, the chief of our IT staff, for arranging and facilitating this virtual event. And finally, on behalf of all the judges of our court, we thank each of you for joining us today. This concludes our ceremony and program for this year.